Hey guys, it's Bruce, and this is Convocourses, where I talk about risk management framework, cybersecurity, and IT jobs, really the industry, and a little bit of how-tos on this channel. So what I want to talk to you first about is some new stuff that I've got on Convocourses.com. We've got a new course where I walk you through how to do resumes, how to do the bullet points for the resumes as far as doing cybersecurity is concerned. If you're interested in that, go to Convocourses.com. Go ahead and check it out. Here it is right here. And there's a free introduction if you want to know like what this course is about, what's going to be in it. You can check out this free one. But this is the expanded version of it, and I will be adding much more to this particular course, and the price does go up as I add more things over time. And just to give you an example, when I first came out with the one about remote work, which I just added to, by the way, I just added more points to more modules to find remote work. Here it is right here. And I continuously add and update the different courses that we have out there. So just wanted to give you an update on that. But what I want to talk to you about today is a question that I get quite often. A question where people are trying to go from their current career path to cybersecurity in particular. And I'll read this specific question that I got. Now I've addressed this before, but I feel like what I need to do is explain like what happened to me, because the realest thing I can do is give you my personal experience, because I actually was in a different profession before I went into cybersecurity. And now I do this stuff, risk management framework right there. So their question was, I am a social worker by profession. Last year, I completed 64 hours of cybersecurity, commercial, and government training because I wanted to change my career. I have not really done much as far as cyber certifications and training. However, I am at a point in my life where I really need to career change. I want to get my resume together, but I really don't know where to start. I don't have a work experience in IT. I have been listening to your free online courses, and I plan to buy your course on resume marketing as well as finding IT remote jobs. And I want to know if I can, if you can help me with my resume. Okay, so first of all, before I tell you like my experience and what I highly recommend you do, the path that's forward, that's ahead of you, is check out this one. If you are in another profession that has nothing to do with IT or very little to do with IT, you have zero experience in IT. I made this cybersecurity entry level course, and what it is essentially is to give you a bird's eye view of what you're getting yourself into. This might be something to where it discourages you from getting into IT, because it's telling you where you need to start, what areas you need to look at, what certifications you need to know, what are the key common bodies of knowledge you need to know. It's a short course and it's free, that tells you, okay, what am I looking at here? So if you were, for example, this person's a social worker, this would be like a social worker telling the basics of what you need as a social worker, where to start, where to go, what kind of degrees do you need, what kind of certification, and then what the basic knowledge that you need. It doesn't really go into detail about like, here's what you do to fix this computer, or here's what you do to do risk management framework. It doesn't get that far. It just tells you, here's what you need to know about networking, here's what you need to know about computers from a security perspective, here's how deep here's the path that you need to go for this, here's the certification I recommend. It's things like that. So it's a free course. I used to charge for it, but I was like, we really need more people in, and then also coronavirus stuff hit, so I just went ahead and made it free for now. All right, so I'm going to tell you what I did. I am from a different profession, so My start was in the military, as a matter of fact. And I'm trying to bear with me here. I'm trying to do something here. If I can just get okay. My profession was in another career field. I was in I was in law enforcement in the military. I was a MP, a military police officer. And what did I do there? I protected planes for the first few years. I was actually like a glorified security guard protecting multi-million-dollar resources. It's from nuclear weapons to satellite facilities, all kinds of stuff. That's the kind of stuff I did. Then I transferred into law enforcement, which is just like you would think it is, enforcing the law on military installations. So I knew a little bit about that. But then it wasn't for me, it wasn't really what I wanted to do. I was really kind of a geek. I really was into computers and stuff. So I knew I had an interest in it, and I wanted to figure out I wanted to get into that career field. And I would see other people working in it, and I'm like, man, that's really what I need to do. This law enforcement stuff isn't really for me. So the first step, if you're a social worker, if you're in HR, if you're in program management, if you are a construction worker, or if you're a foreman, or whatever your job is, whatever it is, doesn't even matter what it is, whatever your profession, and you're trying to get into cybersecurity in particular, the very first step that I did, and that you should do too, is to ask somebody who's in the field. This is very important. It's one thing to read books about it. It's a whole nother thing to ask somebody who you know, preferably who you know, but it could be a stranger, anyone who you know is in IT, and ask them, what do you do? What's your work day like? What's your life like as IT? Do you like doing IT? Ask them stuff and then listen to them. That's what I did. So I was a cop. My last duty station was at Beale Air Force Base in California, and I remember, that was my last cop duty station was in Guam, Anderson Air Force Base, Guam. That's where it was, yeah. And I love Guam. That was a real fun assignment, actually. But I was there. I was a cop doing law enforcement, and I was like, man, I don't want to do this no more. It was so stressful. Being a cop is super hard. So what I did was I went over to the comm. Comm was what we called the computer technicians on base. And I talked to them. I just sat down and I said, hey, guys, I had a question. And they were expecting me to say, hey, could you come over to our unit and fix our computer or something like that, or open up a help desk ticket or something. That wasn't my question. I said, I'm a cop and I want to cross-train. That's what we call it. Cross-rate is another name that I believe the Navy calls it. Or change your MOS if you're in the Army. I want to change my job from being law enforcement to being in computers. And I said, what is it like? Like, what do you do? What kinds of things do you do if I was to transfer over? And the guy was very polite, and he said, well, actually there's many different aspects of comm. You got here, where you're at here is called computer operators. Basically it was help desk. And they would help people at tier 1 type fix actions on computers is what they would do. And I had a friend actually, and I asked him too. I was like, what is it like? What kind of work do you do? What kinds of things? So they would walk me through their job and say, okay, well, I fix these kind of computers right here. See, so we get a ticket in, and then we will respond across the base and go and fix this or that computer. And it's usually Windows type systems, but sometimes it's servers and things like that. And he just walked me through everything they do. And he was like, yeah, I really like doing it, and introduced me to a couple of other people. So I got this idea of what it was like to be an IT person. And then he also explained to me, like, there's different jobs here. There's people who fix the routers and the networks and switches and stuff. There's a firewall guy, and then there's across the yard is programming. Because I was like, well, don't you have to know programming? And he's like, no, that's programmers or something. That's a whole nother career field. That's a whole nother category of IT. We don't do that here, And he's just breaking it all down for me. And how he was telling me how long their schooling is, and telling me everything that I needed to know. And I was sold. I'm like, man, I want to do this. This is exactly what I want to do. So the very first thing you should do is ask somebody you know who is in IT what their life is like. Why did they get into it? What do they do on a day-to-day basis? How do they like it? When did they start? How many years of experience do they do? Are they ever going to, if they're in the military, if they're ever going to get out of the military? That's one of the questions I ask. Just ask all the questions so that you get an idea of, is this something you want to do? Once I knew this was something I wanted to do, my next step was to find out if there was a way that I could laterally change. I could change my job and change my work while in law enforcement, because there was a guy with us that was attached to our unit who, that's all he did was fix computers, and he was actually used to be a cop. So that guy, I asked him, I said, how did you start doing this? Because I'm a cop now, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do law enforcement, but I wouldn't mind fixing people's computers in law enforcement. So how do you do that? And he started telling me like what it took to do that. So that's the second thing you need to do. See if you can change. If you're a social worker, see if you can talk to the IT department. See if you can talk to the management right at your job and laterally move from social work directly over to the IT department. It's one of the easiest ways to actually transfer over, because if they already know you have a great work ethic, they already know you, that you already know the environment, you already know the language that they use, especially if you work at a bank or at a hospital or something like that. It's easier. It may be easier for you to do a lateral move, right? So that was the second thing I did, was I tried to do a lateral move. Well, they told me, well, you have to cross train. You have to cross train over from, change jobs completely over from being a cop to this. And I said, okay, I'll figure it out. I'll figure out what to do. So I start talking to my management. My management told me some completely wrong information, right? But I didn't stop there. I didn't give up. They were telling me, nope, you can't cross train because we need cops more than we need computer guys or whatever, and nobody can leave this career field. And I was like, well, I don't know if that's true or not. So I went and talked to another unit across the base whose their specialty was to change us from one job to another, right? So that's the thing. You got to ask around. Don't just talk to your supervisor, your manager. Talk to the IT department. They might know something that your local supervisor and manager might not know. Maybe even go to somebody who, HR department, go to them, ask them, hey, is it possible to go from this job to this job? Sometimes you'd be surprised. They may even have on the job training that you can actually start working. You're a social worker by day, and then they give you like a few hours on the weekends or in the evening to actually do computer work, so you can have on the job experience, and that would be golden. And there's lots of jobs and careers and organizations who will do that for you, because they're always looking for IT people. So that's the second thing you need to do. Try to make a lateral move. So that's what I did. I made a lateral move. I actually had to go through 6 weeks of training and things like that. And that brings us to the third thing you need to do, which is to get inundated, get completely absorbed into the actual information. You got to learn the common body of knowledge for this career field. And this is a technical field, so there's a lot of layers that you need to learn, and that takes time. Now, what they did when I was in the military was they crammed all this information in our heads. So they would send us to this, I want to say it was like a 2-month course, 2 or 3 month course, where we just went to training every day. Every day we learned about Unix. We learned about Windows. We learned about Mac OS. We learned about how to configure it, how to fix it, how to troubleshoot it. We learned about networking. We learned about MAC addresses, IP addresses, IPv4, where it started, the history of IT. We learned about servers. We learned about clients. We learned about workstations, laptops, everything, how to break the computer apart, how to put it back together. So that's the third thing you need to do, is be completely saturated and learn all the common body of knowledge that goes into IT. It is not easy. The baseline stuff it's a lot. It's just so much information to go through, but you have to have a base. The basics is stuff that I cover as far as what you need to know for security and what you need to focus on is one of the things I talk about here. I'm not breaking down how to actually fix a computer. I'm not walking you through how to fix a computer, anything like that. What I'm doing is saying, you need to know this, you need to know this, you need to know this, go learn it. That's kind of what I'm doing with this one. And my plan is to eventually expand it into me teaching some of those things and be more technical on that. But for now, that's the very first one, free. So anyway, let's get back on track. So we talked about number one, talking to someone. Number two, cross-training, laterally going from one job to the next within your organization, trying that first. And then step three, learning the common body of knowledge. Once you learn the common body of knowledge, the fourth thing that I did was once I was out of school, I passed my courses and stuff, I graduated, I was able to do on-the-job training. This is the first time you can actually really put something on your resume, right? Except if you have a degree or you got a certification while you're learning and stuff. So you can also put that on your resume, of course. But the experience that you're going to get is super duper important. I say this over and over again. The most important thing you can do is not get a certification, not get a degree. That stuff that's cool to have. But the thing is, the most important thing you can do is get experience. And so this is the fourth thing there is get the experience that you need. And that's what I did. Once I went through the school, had already had this basic understanding of the components of a computer, the RAM, the storage, primary memory, secondary memory, and the CPU. I knew how they all work together and things like. I had a great concept in my head about how it worked. Now I had to actually do it and apply it. And that's totally different from book knowledge, by the way. So I was actually doing help desk, and I did that for maybe, 8 months or something like that. And they kind of transferred me here, transferred me there. So I learned networking, and I had a very good, robust start with my on-the-job training because I learned networking by working with the network team. I learned a little bit about servers. I learned a bit about all different aspects of IT and even some management. And then I got into risk management framework at the time called DITSCAP. So I had this great foundation that allowed me to build on it. And it also allowed me to know what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. Because I was still very new, so I didn't have a specialization. But somebody told me something very helpful throughout the years is I asked them how I'm about to get out of the military. I was thinking about it at the time. And I said, how do you get to a point where this guy was working for General Dynamics, I think, at the time. And he was a contractor. And I said, what can I do to make more money once I get out? And he said, you got to specialize. And that was a very important, and even though it's 20 years ago, it's still relevant today. Specialize in something. Once you get the experience, find a course and specialize in that. If it's software engineering, focus on that. If it's software engineering doing security, focus on that. So you're doing one category within IT. So if it's firewalls, focus on that. If it's Cisco routers, focus on that. If it's Palo Alto firewalls, if it's Juniper networking devices, focus on that. So you're still going to have this huge field of all the stuff but you're going to focus on one thing, and that's going to allow you to eventually name your price in that field because you are a specialist in that one thing. So that's what my advice would be is those four things that you should do. That's what happened to me. That's where I got to this point. In the beginning, going to cybersecurity, one more thing I'll add is cybersecurity is really a specialization within IT. It's one branch of IT. IT is huge. It's a huge subject matter. It's like saying when people say, "Hey, how do I get into?" When people ask me, "How do I get in IT?" It's kind of like saying, "How do you get into the medical field?" It's which part of the medical field do you want to be in, kind of thing. Even when they ask me security, when they say, I want to get into cybersecurity. And I'm like, well, that's still like saying, okay, what part of, I want to get into nursing, well, what part do you want to be do you want to be a CNA? Do you want to be an LPN? Do you want to be, there's different, even in nursing, that field alone has like 4 or 5 different things you can do in just that aspect of healthcare. So it's the same thing with cybersecurity. And let me see, there was another thing I wanted to address here. If you guys have any questions, this will be a short one. I won't go too long on this one. I'm trying to look for some other questions that I had. If there's nothing else, Yaya, I've got Yaya on here. It says, good evening, sir. Thank you so much. What's the name of the website? The name of the website is Convocourses.com. Convocourses. If you go to Google, type in Convocourses.com. If you're on YouTube, if you go to the about portion on my page, you can get forwarded very quickly to Convocourses.com. And go ahead and check out tons of free stuff. I'm always putting free stuff out there. Even sometimes there's so much free stuff on there that some of the paid stuff even has free stuff on it. Like if you sign up for it, you can just get free stuff on the paid. Like 1 or 2 modules will be free, just so you can figure out, okay, is this something I want to purchase, and then go for it. And another thing that I do when you do purchase any of these is I will answer any of your questions, especially if you have a resume. I'll look through your resume. If I have an answer for you, I'm not going to BS you. If I don't have an answer, I'm not going to, if I'm not going to BS you or anything like that. But if you have any questions as far as how to get into cybersecurity, can you look at my resume? My honest opinion on whether you can actually get in the risk management framework quickly. Everybody can do this work, but there's certain things that you have to have in place to actually get into risk management. Let me just put it that way. All right, so if there's no other questions, I've got a couple of other things that I'll talk about next week. Maybe we'll talk about what if a POAM is delayed. Somebody asked me that question. Somebody also asked me, what do you review in the SSP? I think I answered that before, but I can cover that again. And I think that's it, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I got 7 people watching. Appreciate everybody, and have a great weekend. I know things are really crazy right now. Just hang in there. Thanks. Okay. Yes, certifications are the main key. The main key. I would say experience is the main key, but certifications are definitely good to have. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you guys. And